All right. Well, today I'm going to talk about a little bit about debate. I want to talk about a more formalized version of debate, not necessarily argumentation, but my own copy. Thank you. Of course, I handed them all out. Okay, so if you look at this little sheet that I'm passing out, there are 5 things on here. There are 5 really important things in debate. What I'm going to teach you today is not the process of debate. I'm not going to teach you formal argumentation process. I'm not going to teach you collegiate debate research or anything like that. I'm going to teach you how to win. I'm going to teach you how to argue and win. Who likes to lose? Deja. Deja. That's right. Give it up. Who likes to win? I would raise a roof, but that's about 5 years too old. So we're not raising any roofs yet. Now, one of the hardest things that I've noticed, especially in other cultures and more collectivist cultures, is in debate, there tends to be more of a compromise ideal. But that's not the point of argumentation. Compromise is not necessarily the point of argumentation, let's be honest. Argumentation and arguing specifically is to have the better position in a ideological battle, as it were. If you look at your sheet, everyone got a sheet already now? So Rob, you have one as well?
Yeah.
Look under credibility. Under credibility, you have 2 things: trustworthiness and expertise. When you get up and you speak in front of a crowd, especially when you're having a public debate, people will more than likely side with someone that they like. Okay? So how can you get someone to like you? When you are doing a public debate, first thing you can do, what? Make them what? Sigh? No. Not in debate. In debate, you want to make them think. You want to make them go, not. You want to make them, You want to make them think. So you have trustworthiness. Under credibility, you have trustworthiness. The first thing, you have to make your audience believe that what you're talking about, you are someone who can be trusted on the topic. There are many ways to do that. First of all, you can relate it to something personal. You can show that you have what is called the second thing, expertise. One of the best ways to have to exhibit expertise is to relate a topic or an ideal to something that's personal, something that you personally felt or experienced, because that would make you an expert. Now, who here's an expert on something other than Will, because he's an expert on business? What are you an expert on, Bob? Okay, shut up.
Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2, that's wrong.
Solar cell electronics.
Huh?
Solar cell electronics.
Electronics. Okay, good.
Buying things I don't need at the store.
Let's talk about something useful. Because we're all experts at that.
Conflict.
You're an expert at conflict? Oh, well, that's not going to help here, because you're about resolving conflict, and I'm about creating it tonight. Bob, don't eat. I only have a limited amount of time. So, if you don't have expertise on something legitimate, if your only expertise is Street Fighter 2, which would have like who knows how many, out of 4? Is that including Street Fighter X, whatever there is? Like, okay, exactly. There are more Street Fighter.
I'll test your expertise, by the way. Test it.
So, if you're not an expert, how can you gain expertise? How can you show expertise? You can quote or cite someone who is an expert. So if I were to have an argument on, give me a topic, anything. Somebody, shout out the topic.
Quantum mechanics.
Huh?
Quantum mechanics.
on quantum mechanics. If I were to have an argument on quantum mechanics, who would I want to cite? Schrodinger, probably. Someone like Schrodinger or Will. Will. He's or Einstein. Well, no, Einstein was not really quantum.
No, he was against quantum.
He was against quantum physics. That's what I thought. See,
Quote Will.
a little bit of expertise here on my part. So, one of the best ways to show credibility is to cite experts. If you are not an expert yourself, that does not mean you cannot show expertise. If you show that you've done your research, if you show that you know what you're talking about, you can cite someone. I can cite people like Schrodinger on quantum mechanics. And all of a sudden I can talk about the cat in a box that may or may not be alive or dead or even exist for that matter. But I'm showing my expertise by quoting someone who is a technical expert. That makes me more trustworthy. But trustworthiness is more than just expertise. It's how comfortable your audience feels with you. It's how comfortable, in formal debate we would say, how comfortable your judge feels with your ability to speak the truth. Is he lying to me? Is he making things up? Did you know that 80% of all facts and statistics are made up? It's an old joke. If the people in the audience feel that you're telling them the truth, they are more likely to feel that you are trustworthy and more likely to listen to your argument. Next, advantages versus disadvantages. This is like I like to call this like the secret trap door. If you look, there are always advantages and disadvantages to every argument. Now you're going to have someone who's going to try and argue that you're wrong. In any given debate, no matter what you say, if it's a debate, inherently and by definition, someone's going to say, no, you're wrong, I'm right. So the best thing to do is to know the advantages and disadvantages to your own plans. If you have a debate, know what you're going to talk about, know the advantages and the disadvantages. This is what I call the preemptive strike. It says preemptive argument, but I like, because I'm an American, I like to preemptive strike. So if someone says something, or if you have an idea, I mean, if someone's about to say it, you can actually say it before them. Oh, well, my opponent is going to say that my plan has problem A. But I'm here to tell you that problem A is not really a problem because of da 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 da. You can preemptively argue against someone else's objections. Now also, once you become really good at argumentation, you can actually think from their side. Once you're able to look at both sides, because sometimes you're too passionate. I talked to Tim today, he said, I'm good at arguing when I actually believe in what I'm talking about. But when you become good at argumentation and debate, you learn how to look at it, well, I believe what I'm talking about, but I can argue the exact same thing as my opponent anytime, just because I'm trained in argumentation. So what you want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is you have to think from your opponent's point of view. What is going to be their number one advantage? You argue against that advantage. What are their disadvantages? You blow them up the size of the world. You make them huge. Oh, I'm here to argue that point A and point B. And I know my opponent's points are going to be this and this. But their points are wrong for these reasons. You understand you understand where I'm going? You're preemptive. You're attacking their arguments before they even give their arguments. That shows your audience or your judges that you know what you're talking about, you're prepared to argue both sides, and it makes you have a stronger position in an argument. Take that advantage away from them. When you take their advantage away, you are the advantage. Next thing, one of the best things to do is to know your audience. Don't get in front of an audience of Koreans and talk about how you hate kimchi. I did that once. When Bob beat me, even though my speech was funnier and more engaging, Bob beat me because...
No.
Thank you, bro.
I don't care what you say. Your only expertise is Street Fighter. Be quiet. Because I got up and I actually argued that I don't like kimchi. So you have to know your audience. Don't argue against your audience's existing ideals. You will always be unsuccessful. Because in a legitimate debate, your judges and your audience are supposed to be neutral, but they're not. They have pre-existing ideas. So you don't argue against the audience's pre-existing ideas. One of the second things, I have an educational session, so I don't get charged. So you may have to cut it a little bit. Sorry. You gave me less time than I should have.
I think you get charged.
Second.
Call the vote.
By the way, we are in the middle of a speech, and you guys are very rude. So framing the question. Like it says right here, it's a debate secret. If someone has an argument, if you have a resolution, and someone starts to argue it, you can rephrase the question, remake the question into your own ideals. That way, when you reframe the question, you change the entire argument to your advantage because you're sitting in the power seat at that point. So if there's a resolution of green M&Ms are better than red M&Ms, for example, and you can make, they're talking about candy, you can make M&Ms something completely different. Anything that has M and M in it, I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. Find the flaw. Easy. Just find the flaw in your other people's argument. And finally, one of the most important, be confident. When you get up here and you speak from a weak position, you will be seen as weak. Okay? Now what I want to do, you can put it down, I've got 25 minutes. So you don't have to do this. Now what I want to do is I need 4 volunteers for a debate. 4 volunteers for a debate. Peter, Ryan,
Andy,
Sarab. I'm going to take volunteers first, so don't volunteer other people. So 1, 2, 3. One more.
4.
You're a teacher at Kodak, man. You're at Kodak. You get to come up. Come on. We teach. At some point in the semester, this man teaches some kind of debate. At one of his 2 semesters, right?
Necessarily.
But not unnecessarily either, right? Oh, so come up here. What I want you to do, okay. Just stand on 2 different sides. Okay, we've already picked our sides. We're going to have 2 sides. We're going to have what's in debate we call negative and affirmative. It is affirmative's job to argue status quo. Affirmative's job is to argue status quo, which is the resolution. So we have affirmative, and negative over here. Our resolution today is subways are the best form of public transportation. I'm sure you have, but it's easy and it's good. It's germane. So germane, by the way, means applicable to the argument. So what I want you to do, it's the affirmative's job to always argue for the resolution. Subways are the best form of transportation. It is their job to argue against the resolution. You guys have 2 minutes each, maximum 2 minutes each to speak. Usually this is the way we would do it. I'd have more time, I would make it different, but I don't have more time. So pick your first speaker and your closing speaker, and we'll switch off, okay? So who's your opening speaker? Affirmative always goes first. Affirmative always goes first. Season 38.
Season 2.
Now, one of the things about resolutions, while they're discussing, one of the things about resolutions is they're usually fairly neutral. We don't have things like one time we had a debate here that Audis should be the only car in the world. That's a little bit of a strong, lopsided resolution. So they're usually fairly neutral. Gives both teams a chance, both sides a chance. Are you guys ready?
Ready for?
Who to speak? You have to speak.
Okay, alright.
Okay, who's first?
I'll go.
Okay, we don't have the 30 minutes normal prep time.
Okay,
So
alright. Sure.
who's your first speaker? Okay, affirmative goes first, then negative, then affirmative, then negative. Okay? So affirmative, please start.
One more time. Affirmative.
Are we timing?
Okay.
Rusty. Are we
Yes, we're timing 2 minutes tops each speaker.
When did
Maximum 2 minutes per speaker.
Ken?
Let's just
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to get something very clear. It's a very simple point. I'd like to guide everybody's attention to this proposition on the board. Subways are the best form of public transportation. Focus on 3 words. The first word is best. Okay? The next word is public. And the final word is transportation. Now, we all know what best means. Now, public. When we think of public, what does that mean? It should be accessible. Right? And for something to be accessible means it should be everywhere. All right. And I think we can all agree that the subway system in Seoul is everywhere. And it's cheap. Okay? So we definitely qualify under the category of public. Okay? Transportation. Transportation means move on, that we even have a subway system in the first place. That's why we ride subways instead of buses, to avoid traffic. So absolutely, based on these 2 words here, subway is hands down the best form of transportation. I'd also like to say there are numerous subways in this city that I would comfortably eat off the floor. They're impeccably clean. I have seen cleaners on a regular basis cleaning ajumas and ajishis, scrubbing the railings, scrubbing the handles, cleaning everywhere you could possibly imagine. So on another front, subways are absolutely comfortable and clean, and you don't have to worry about any of the common ideas you may have with cleanliness or filth in public.
Okay, so the affirmative side mentioned that subways may be cheap means of transport. However, the reality in Korea is very different. If you think about the cost of suicide, all those people who've jumped onto the tracks in the last few years, it's no laughing matter. That's why we have those screen doors that are now closed, and guess who's paying for them? We are. Billions of won down the drain straight away. And then we have the idea of obstacles. Well, okay, maybe we can get to our destination more quickly and more efficiently in some ways, but in others, that's just not the case. Think about it. 9 o'clock, or even 8 o'clock, rush hour in the morning. Line 2 or line 1, it's a catastrophe. You're wedged up there against people, pressing against private parts that really shouldn't be pressed against. It's really quite obscene, and it's gross, and it's just a horrible way. Everyone's trying to look the other way as though you're not invading my private space. It's all very okay, and it's not. It's not at all. Thirdly, the idea of cleanliness. I don't think so. Because once you leave this building and get back onto the subway, you will notice a certain odor, the odor of soju. It should be called the soju train on Saturday night. And it stinks, man, it stinks. Not only that, but you have all these people selling things, polluting our very transportation space with their products and their gimmicks. I must say, public transportation, not only in Korea, but in the world, it leaves a lot to be desired. Thank you.
Okay, I just heard this and I couldn't believe my ears. They're saying the public transportation, the subway system in Seoul is not the best way to go. Well, I simply disagree. For one reason, they say it's crowded in the subway. Well, you can go at different times. You don't have to go at 8 in the morning. You can go at 7, and there's no one there at 7. Check it out. Soju. I don't drink soju. I use the subway. Come on. Have you drunk soju in the subway? Okay, well, that's a minority. Okay, there's another word. Now they're going to say also that it's not suicide. I mean, I don't think this is a big problem that we face. I mean, but suicides happen. They're unfortunate. But if we get rid of subways, does that prevent the suicide rate? Does that stop people? I don't think so. And so we can't use that as a legitimate argument for using the subway. I still think it's the best because it's fast. Okay, even if you take a taxi, you're going to be beat if you take a subway. Subways are faster than taxis often because they are using underground as opposed to the congested traffic. Also, they're very convenient. You can go anywhere. You can go anywhere in Seoul. If you're going outside of Seoul, then you can take the KTX, the Moving Walk. And so this will link you up with many places. Also, you can avoid accidents. Okay.
What are you doing? I'm gonna cut him down. Back in the car. Shut the door. Nobody move. Let's get down. Get down. Get down. Get down to it. Get down to it.
People cheat. They puke. They drink soju. Does it clean? I don't think so. It is clean. There's a lot of people who smells with soju, and they beat on your face. Do you think it's cheap? It's very cheap. It's just 900 won, and you can travel all the way from your destination to next destination. Say, it's stop everywhere. You don't need to see every station, you know. And there's not enough seat. There's not enough chairs to sit it down. How could it be convenient for you? Most of the people, at least 80% people in the subway stand up. And somebody come up, you can see through them. How
Henry! Henry!
And you are arriving over there at 8 o'clock, what you want to do? You're wasting your time because of this cheapness. I agree. There's a traffic jam here. And subway is good. But look at these things. which is not easy to be accessed. I strongly say survey is not the best way. One more thing, it must, oh. Yes,
the point of this was actually not to find out who's the better debater. I'm not going to ask your opinions at this point. First, I'm so sorry. The point of this was to use it as a demonstration. First of all, Peter, have you debated before? No. The first thing he did was one of the most important things a debater should do. Define the argument. He got up here and he defined every one of the vocabulary words. He gave definition. That's one of the most important things to do, because when you define it for yourself, you become in a position of power in your argument. Now, they both did argue very well, and so I want to give them a round of applause. Now, we do have a debate with Dejan schoolmasters.